America with 400 million black people can do it. If you cannot do it, if you are not prepared to do it, then you will die. You race of cowards, you race of imbeciles, you race of good for nothing. If you cannot do what other men have done, what other nations have done, what other races have done, then you had better die.
Let's get one thing straight. Our story does not begin with slavery. It doesn't begin with ships. It doesn't begin with chains. It begins with the greatest theft in human history. A civilization was taken apart piece by piece, its science renamed, its doctrine rebranded, its symbols reassigned, its source erased. Starting with the Hyksos and continuing through wave after wave of foreign rule, what was built in Kemet was extracted, relabeled, and claimed. They didn't conquer us first. They conquered the record. And once you control the origin story, you decide who is advanced, who is primitive, and who is allowed to remember. By the time the world met us again, we weren't introduced as architects. We were introduced as damn labor. This isn't a motivational talk. This is a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. The mirror says you descended from builders, from people who engineered calendars, law, medicine, architecture, cosmology, and statecraft. So explain this contradiction. Attention spans destroyed, families fragmented, bodies poisoned, money hemorrhaging outward, identity fractured, memory missing. That's not random. That's what happens when a people inherit the effects of a civilization but are denied the knowledge of how it was built. You can't maintain what you're never taught to recognize. The theft followed a pattern. First, infiltration, trade routes, settlements, alliances, then occupation, foreign rulers mingling and wearing local symbols. Then renaming. Our science becomes mysticism. Our law becomes myth. Our cosmology becomes religion. Our language becomes hieroglyphs instead of operating code. Then reassignment of credit. What was African becomes Near Eastern. What was Kemetic becomes Greek. What was ancestral becomes universal. History wasn't lost. It was edited, then copyright. When a civilization is stripped of its records, the people don't forget overnight. They inherit fragments, ritual without instruction, symbols without context, stories without timelines. So what follows isn't collapse, it's misalignment. You still see greatness, but it's unfocused. You still see intelligence, but it's misapplied. You still see leadership, but it's reactive instead of generative. Because without the original framework, people try to rebuild power using pieces of someone else's system. That's why effort stays high, but results stay shallow. You cannot reconstruct a civilization from memory gaps and borrowed models. Until the record is restored, everything else is improvisation. Kemet was not a religion. It was a system of systems rooted in Mayat. Mayat wasn't poetry. It was operating law, truth, balance, order, reciprocity, harmony, justice. They weren't virtues, they were infrastructure. They governed food, labor, health, family, wealth, and leadership. When Mayat was upheld, the civilization expanded. When Mayat was manipulated or abandoned, collapse followed. This is not ancient history. This is a diagnostic. A people disconnected from their blueprint will mistake noise for progress and reaction for movement. They'll argue endlessly but build nothing. They'll memorize moments but forget methods. They'll celebrate symbols but reject structure. And without structure, nothing lasts. That's why remembering is dangerous. Because once you remember how a civilization actually functions, you stop asking permission. The morning doesn't ask permission, it arrives. And when it does, a choice appears. Not belief, not outrage, not performance. A choice between drift and discipline, between imitation and reconstruction, between surviving inside someone else's system or rebuilding your own. Mayat doesn't require worship, it requires alignment. Your habits, your family structure, your economic behavior, your diet, your words, your work. A nation is not a flag. A nation is a daily practice. This was never about discovering something new. It was about recovering what was taken. And once memory returns, construction follows. The morning is already here. The only question is, who's ready to live in it? Sleeping Nation, the morning after 5,000 years. This isn't information, it's reconstruction. Dua Necha.